Okay, guys, 2 more days of Math 3 and you're done. We're going to start with graphing trig functions. My printer cut off a little bit of the title there, sorry. Trig functions come in the format y equals a sine or cosine of x plus k. A is what's called your amplitude. And that's the absolute value of a, because amplitude is a distance. If a is negative, it reflects across the x. Sorry. K is your vertical shift. And A is like a stretch or compression. But it'll make more sense in just a second. The period of, because these trig functions, like when we were looking at our unit circle, goes around in a circle, it repeats after after 360 degrees or 2 pi. So that's called a periodic function. And the period, which has a variable of t, don't ask me why, is always going to be 2 pi. We're going to be looking at this in radians. And our notches for our graph is going to be your period divided by 4. So when your period is 2 pi, and it does change, but we're not going to look at that today, over 4. So you're dividing that 2 pi divided by 4, which is equal to pi over 2. So we're then, the pattern for sine is going to start at the origin and then go up. And this will make sense in just a second. So first of all, let's look at it in our calculator. You can use it as much as you like. You need to be in radians mode. And I'm going to say y equals the sine of x. And look at my graph. It is cyclical. Okay, it goes around and around. It doesn't change. It's going to stay within those values for any angle measure. So x is our angle measure. You can notice that angle measure in radians. And y is our value of sine. So that's what it's going to look like. It's always going to look like that. It's going to be stretched, compressed, shifted, but that is the basics. So when I say notches, the notches on your x-axis, one cycle of sine, I always graph 4 notches. One cycle means it's one period. It's going to repeat every 2 pi. So the end notch is always going to be your period. And then your period divided by 4 is how you get your other notches. So we have pi over 2. We're going up by pi over 2 each time. So 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, which is pi, 3 pi over 2, which doesn't simplify, and 4 pi over 2, which is 2 pi. For this one, our a value is 1, k value is 0. This is just the parent function. Our amplitude is 1. That's going to be its distance from the center. We're going up 1, and we're going down 1. I'm going to graph 1 notch to the left here. That's negative pi over 2. Sine is going to start at the origin, and it's going to go up at your next notch, down to your center line, which is your x-axis, down to your minimum value, up to your center line. So it's just following this pattern. If you kept going, you'd go up, down, down, up, down, that kind of thing. So then here, this direction, we're going down. You can also find these values on your unit circle. If you look at your unit circle, the sine of 0 degrees is going to be 0. The sine of pi over 2 is going to be 1. The sine of pi is going to be 0. Remember, sine is your y value. Sine of 3 pi over 2 is going to be -1. And then the sine of 2 pi is equivalent to the sine of 0, which is 0. The only difference in sine and cosine, sine, remember, is your y value. And cosine is your x value. So all of this stuff is the same except for where it starts. Cosine starts at the maximum and goes down. So if we're looking at the cosine of x, so if we plug in our values and make a table, we have 0. Again, our period is the same for sine and cosine. I'm just making a period. Is 2 pi. Notches are the same. And it's going to start at the maximum and go down. So I'm going to start with my notches. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have pi over 2, 2 pi over 2 or pi, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2. So I'm plugging in these values. The cosine is your x value. So the x value at 0 is 1 on your unit circle. At pi over 2 is 0. At pi is -1. 3 pi over 2 is 0, and at 2 pi is 1. So this is how we get our values. This one, our amplitude is 1. Our coefficient to our cosine is your amplitude. So we're starting at our maximum and we're going down. Again, to graph these, you need to be in radian mode on your calculator or on Desmos. So those are the parent functions, sine and cosine. We're going to look at 2 more that involve a shift. So this one, we have y equals 2 times the sine of x plus 1. That means a equals 2 and k equals 1. So we are going up 1, and we have a stretch or an amplitude of 2. So instead of going up 1, now we're going up 2 and down 2, right? But first we need to look at our vertical shift. So we started on our x-axis before, now we have this vertical shift of up 1. I'm going to make a dashed line there, and I'm going to treat this like my new x-axis. Treat it like your new x-axis. So from here, you're going up 2. And from here, you're going down 2. That's going to be your amplitude, your distance from the center, okay? So now I'm going to, my period hasn't changed, so my notches are the same. Pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi. So p equals 2 pi. Notches, pi over 2, right? And now I'm going to make a table. 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. So now what I'm doing is I'm using the sine value of x, and I'm multiplying that by 2 and then adding 1. So just like what we did before, the sine of 0 is 0. We have 2 times 0, which is 1. The sine at pi over 2 is 1. So 2 times 1 is 3. The sine at pi is 0. The sine at 3 pi over 2 is -1. And the sine at 2 pi is 0. Or, so if you do your table and like that, then by all means do that. Or you can graph all these things and then use your pattern. Sine starts at the center or the origin, but it's shifted up now. And then it goes up to the maximum. So our amplitude is 2, so it's going up 2 from there. Then down to the center, down to the minimum, up to the center. You can graph these on Desmos. And then the last one, we have a negative out front, so A equals -3. So that means our amplitude is 3, and we reflect with respect to the x-axis. And we have our K value is -1. So that means we're going down 1. So I'm going to start with my shift of -1. My amplitude is 3, so from there I'm going 3 away, so down to -4 and up to 2. My period is still 2 pi, so my notches are still pi over 2. And now I can use my pattern. So the only difference is with this reflection, instead of starting at my maximum like I would do with cosine, I'm going to start at my minimum. So I'm going to use my pattern, and then I'm going to go back and show you the table. Start at my minimum. So normally I started at my maximum and went down. As I reflected, I'm starting at my minimum and going up to my center line, up to my maximum, down to my center line, down to my minimum. So now if I go over here and show you my table, I'm plugging in 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. I have a -3 times my cosine of 0. Cosine of 0 is 1, and then this time I subtract 1 from that. So -3 times 1 is -3, minus 1 is -4. The cosine of pi over 2 that's my x value, so that's 0. You get -1. The cosine of pi is -1. So you have -3 times -1 is +3, minus 1 is 2. The cosine of 3 pi over 2 is 0. And then the cosine of 2 pi is 1. So there's your table. Hope that's not too bad. Definitely practice graphing those. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a great day.